Magnetic mountains? For the past 2 days, my mechanical wristwatch either stopped or ran fast or slow. I thought it was a cheap, poor quality watch that broke in the desert. Could it be because we are near those two magnetic mountains? Old Anlaman also remembered hearing people say that in the heart of the desert, there were two sacred Zaklama mountains, one red and one white, said to be the burial sites of immortal saints. Shirley Yang said, if there are really two such mountains in the desert, then the underground Shudu River might have been blocked by the magnetic mountains far below the surface, which is why we can't find it. I think we shouldn't focus on finding the underground river anymore. If the legends and the English explorers' records are correct, then the magnetic mountains must be nearby. Brother Yi, tonight we'll have to rely on your geomancy and stargazing skills once again. Don't forget, we agreed before, if we find the ancient city of Jingju, the reward will be doubled. From the beginning, I didn't believe in finding the city of Jingju. Hearing her say that, I had no choice but to wait until evening to try. If we can find Zaklama Mountain, my reward will surely be increased by $20,000. If not, we'll probably have to retreat. Honestly, I'm not sure if I want to find the ancient city of Jingju. After hearing about the Queen of Jingju, that mysterious, beautiful, and bewitching image kept haunting my mind, unable to be dispelled. In the depths of the desert, there seemed to be an invisible magic drawing me in. I wonder if Professor Chen, Shirley Yang, and those expedition teams who never returned felt the same way I do. Today, the daylight was endlessly long. I just wished I could shoot the sun down. The holes dug in the sand were so deep, yet not a bit of coolness could be felt. Although a large, thick tarp was set up over the hole, and we hid in the shade, lying in the sand pit, it still felt like being in an oven. Yi Yixin, with her frail health, had probably suffered sunstroke, and was lying delirious, mumbling. Everyone worried she had a high fever. They touched her forehead. It was as hot as the sand, making it impossible to tell clearly if she had a high fever. But no matter how much they shook her, she wouldn't wake up. We still had some water, enough for about 5 days, plus 2 pouches of yogurt, which we would save for the last moment. At this point, there was nothing to regret. I took 1 pouch and gave it to Shirley Yang to help Yi Yixin drink a few sips, then gave her some medicine. After Yi Yixin drank the medicine, she gradually improved but still remained unconscious. She was probably suffering from acute dehydration, which was problematic. I informed Professor Chen and the others about the situation the archaeological team was facing. There were only 2 paths. One was to depart tonight and return, which would mean eating camel meat, drinking salty water from sand puddles, and traveling on foot for the last few days of the journey back. Even so, it wasn't certain that Yi Yixin's life would be out of danger. The second path was to press on, continuing to search for the city of Jingju. If there was water in the city, her life would be saved from the gates of hell. Professor Chen said, the difficulties we face are immense. Although archaeology requires a spirit of sacrifice and dedication, Yi Yixin is so young, and we must be responsible for her life. The first path seems stable, but without a supplementary water source, the journey back will be extremely arduous. The second path is relatively risky, but we are already close to Zaklama. There's a 60% chance we can find the city of Jingju. All ancient cities have underground water sources, but after more than 2,000 years, no one knows if the water veins have dried up or changed course. Now, where should we go and what should we look for? Everyone, please state your opinions. Fatty Wang spoke first. My waist has shrunk by 2 full sizes already. If we keep going deeper, everyone can just call me Skinny Wang later. I suggest we don't stop for another minute or hour. As soon as the sun sets, we turn back. Maybe we can still save half our lives if we go back. Hao Eguo and Sa Dipeng, these 2 were relatively cautious and also agreed to turn back. In the end, more people felt that the path to finding the city of Jingju, though risky, was worth trying. After all, everyone had put in so much effort and paid such a price. It wasn't easy to get to where they were today. They truly didn't want to give up halfway, and also hoped to find a source of fresh water in the ancient city to save Yi Yixin's life. The journey back, drinking salty water from sand puddles, would be daunting even for healthy people, let alone Yi Yixin, who was so severely ill. Turning back would be tantamount to a death sentence for her. I, Shirley, Yang, Chu Jian, and the professor all shared this view. Aside from the unconscious Yi Yixin, only old Anlaman remained silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on his face. If his opinion was to turn back, then we would be evenly split 4-4. But Anlaman was the guide, and his decision in this matter was crucial. I said to old Anlaman, think carefully before you speak. Your words concern Yi Yixin's life. What should we do now? Old Anlaman held his pipe in his mouth, his eyes half closed as he looked at the sun above, then said, as for me, of course, I'll follow Hu Tai's will. There is only one sun in the sky, and only one omnipotent true Lord in the world. Hu Tai will guide us. I pointed to the sky, then quickly asked, what does Mr. Hu Tai say? Mr. Anlaman tapped his pipe, tucked it into his belt, then took out a torn mat. With a devout expression, he began to pray, pressing his palms together and covering his face. He started chanting scriptures, his face solemn and sincere, completely unlike his usual sly, mercantile demeanor. He mumbled scriptures. We didn't understand what he was reading. The longer we waited, the more he seemed to chant endlessly. Fatty Wang grew impatient and asked, Father, oh father, why do you keep mumbling like that? The old man opened his eyes wide and smiled. Hu Tai has already given us a hint. With that, he pulled out 5 coins and showed them to everyone. The side with text meant to continue forward, and the side with a picture meant to return along the old path. He invited Professor Chen, the oldest member of the group, to toss these 5 coins into the air. The result would be Hu Tai's will. The whole group didn't know whether to laugh or cry, turning to look at each other. Professor Chen took the coins and tossed them high. Everyone looked up at the coins. The sunlight was dazzling, but they still saw the coins fall from the air and embed themselves upright in the sand. Even if tossed 1,000,000 times, it wouldn't necessarily land so skillfully. Old Anlaman shook his head repeatedly, a crestfallen look on his face. He had forgotten that this was the black desert that Hu Tai had abandoned. How could Hu Tai guide them here? Just as we were expressing our surprise, Shirley Yang suddenly pointed into the distance and exclaimed, My God! Is that Zaklama mountain? The desert was vast and boundless, countless miles within sight. Following the direction of her hand, straight in line with where the coins had landed, at the very edge of the horizon, a faint black line shimmered. It was too far away. If one didn't look carefully, it was impossible to see clearly. We quickly took out binoculars, adjusted the focus, and observed. A range of black mountains appeared like a motionless black dragon amidst countless miles of golden sand. The mountain range was broken in the middle, forming a valley. These features matched what the English explorer had recorded in his notebook. Last year, Shirley Yang's father and his expedition team also relied on these clues to search for the ancient city of Jing. We don't know if they reached this sacred mountain. If they did, what did they encounter? What made them go and never return? Thinking of this, under the scorching sun, I couldn't help but feel a chill, but this feeling was quickly faded by the joyous atmosphere of everyone. After a long and arduous journey, facing countless perils, we had finally, at the last moment, found the gateway to the ancient land of Jing. But old Anlaman had once said that in the Black Desert, there was an illusory land where mirages often appeared, leading people to their deaths. Were the 2 sacred mountains we saw real? Then I immediately thought, perhaps not. First, desert mirages are produced by the refraction of light. Those varied landscapes are mostly scenes that never exist in the desert. But the Black Mountain Range, it had been mentioned more than once, so it must be real. We were not far from the ancient city of Jing. When night fell, we could set off. But the information we had was very limited, mostly legends and speculation. The only somewhat reliable evidence was that faint black and white photograph. Whether we could actually find the ancient city of Jing, or even if such an ancient city truly existed in this world, was very hard to say. Perhaps it was all exaggerated rumor. Legends are always formed that way. On the Korean battlefield, MacArthur once said, "When we started, we thought we knew everything, but then we realized we knew nothing." Now, I seem to have the same feeling. Would the ruins of the royal city be buried under golden sand again? Would a water source be found within the city? Was the ancient tomb of the Queen of Jing located inside the city or somewhere else? Were there truly treasures piled high like mountains in the city? What exactly was that demon queen like? After her death, would she still exert her terrifying influence over others? Was it true that Shirley Yang's father died in this ancient city of Jingju? Could their bodies be found? What happened to those foreign explorers in the city? All of these things remained unknown to us. It was already late afternoon. The archaeological team began to set off towards Zaklama. There's a saying, you see the mountain, you ride your horse to death, and still you're not there. We kept walking until past midnight, before reaching the mountain pass. At this moment, the moonlight was like water, and the desert resembled a tranquil coastline. Amidst this sea of sand, the Zaklama mountain range undulated, its entire body covered in dark black rocks. The closer we got, the clearer it became. Rather than calling it a mountain, it was more fitting to call it two giant black rocks. These two massive rock formations were perhaps several tens of kilometers in diameter, only revealing a faint ridge in the vast sea of sand. Most of the rock was buried underground. It was possible that beneath the surface, these two formations were connected, and this gorge was merely a crack. This type of black rock contained magnetic iron. Although the average content was not high, it was enough to affect precise navigation equipment. We also felt the metal objects on us growing heavier by the moment. The moonlight illuminated the black rocks without any reflection. In the dark and deep gorge, apart from the unconscious Yi Yixin, everyone dismounted to walk. I suggested that everyone turn on their lights. Traveling in this eerie place, one could not be careless. Old Anlaman and I went first. Fatty Wang and Chu Jian brought up the rear. Shirley Yang and the others walked in the middle, looking after Yi Yixin. The entire team proceeded in single file, cautiously entering the gorge. This mountain was considered sacred by the ancients, said to be the burial place of two immortal saints, which was likely mostly mythological. But from a geomantic perspective, this place was indeed considered to possess a complete form, with an aura that swallowed all phenomena. The Black Mountains were like two black dragons guarding the pass. While the burial of immortal saints in the mountain was false, if there truly was the tomb of the Queen of Jingju behind the mountain, it would not be surprising at all. The moon was high in the sky, and the north-south running gorge grew even darker, so much so that one couldn't see their own 5 fingers clearly. We stumbled forward, our unease growing with every step. After leaving this gorge, would we find the ancient city of Jingju? If found, would there still be a water source within? The most pressing concern right now was Yi Yixin's condition. Her acute dehydration required a quantity of cold saline solution for treatment. If no water source was found in the next 3 days, her life would simply be left behind in this desolate desert. Our watches had broken long ago. We didn't know how much longer we had to walk, but intuitively it would soon be dawn. However, at this moment, the camel's breathing suddenly became labored, a clear sign of trouble. Old Anlaman hastily whistled and shouted, trying his best to calm the camels. These 19 camels were all robust males chosen from hundreds, and they had never behaved like this during all their days in the desert. It was already pitch dark on all sides. Now, with the camels panicking, it only increased the fear in the hearts of the archaeological team members. Shirley Yang, worried the camels would throw Yi Yixin off, quickly helped Hao Eguo get her down from the camel's back. I called Fatty Wang over, asking him to take on the burden of carrying Yi Yixin. This gorge was extremely strange, not a place to linger. We couldn't delay, it was best to get out quickly. Fatty Wang unexpectedly accepted happily. Firstly, because Yi Yixin wasn't very heavy to begin with. Since entering the desert, sunstroke and dehydration had made her so thin she was skin and bones. Besides, carrying a pretty young lady wasn't a bad thing. He carried Yi Yixin on his back like a child, constantly urging old Anlaman ahead to hurry up. However, no matter how old Anlaman herded them, the camels wouldn't move another step, clinging to life. He started to doubt, suspecting ghosts and spirits, and then began chanting scriptures again, fearing that Hu Tai didn't want them to continue, and that they should turn back immediately. They were almost out of the gorge now, and none of the remaining people wanted to turn back. Immediately, the whole group became agitated. Shirley Yang said to me, "Perhaps there's something ahead that frightens the camels and makes them unwilling to advance. Let's light a flare and throw it forward to see clearly, then decide." I, standing at the front, replied, then took out a flare, lit it and threw it forward, illuminating the path ahead. On both sides were still dark black mountain rocks, and the ground was a layer of fine, thick golden sand. The mountains were silent, with not even a blade of grass. There was nothing unusual at all. At that moment, I took a few more steps forward and threw a second flare. The area ahead lit up, and in the distance, I saw a person sitting on the ground. We ran over to look and found the person wearing a white jacket, a sand-proof scarf on their head and a backpack on their back, sitting motionless. It turned out they were dead. Everyone was startled and astonished. Encountering dead people or mummies in the desert was not uncommon, but this corpse was entirely different. The deceased was male, his headscarf completely covering his face, revealing only two wide, open eyes staring up at the sky, dead with his eyes open. The time of death must not have been too long ago, perhaps only in the past few days. His exposed skin was only slightly dry. The strangest thing was that his flesh had turned greenish, blue, and under the flare's light it even shimmered with faint green streaks. Several people intended to gather around and look, but I stopped them all. This person's death was too bizarre, we absolutely must not get closer. Chu Jian suddenly shouted, "Brother Yi, there's another corpse here." A shiver ran down my spine. 2 consecutive corpses, were there more? I casually tossed a few more flares, illuminating a wide area. Indeed, there weren't just 2 corpses. Ahead there were also 4 more bodies of men lying scattered on the ground. These corpses were all dressed similarly, died in the same manner, and all had their eyes wide open in terror, looking very peculiar. Scattered on the ground were several Soviet-made AK-47 rifles and a few backpacks. I pulled out my sapper shovel as a self-defense weapon and went to pick up a rifle to inspect it. A round was already chambered. What in the world? Who were these people? In Xinjiang, some poachers used foreign-made Remington style or type 56 rifles. How could there be Soviet-made AKs? Could they be the tomb raiders who hit the stone tombs? I opened another backpack to look inside. There were quite a few yellow military explosives with Russian letters printed on them. These guns and ammunition must have been imported from abroad. It wasn't strange for tomb raiders to buy weapons to blast open ancient tombs in the desert. However, how could they, so heavily armed, still die so inexplicably here? I used the rifle barrel to flick open the headscarf of the corpse sitting on the ground. I saw his mouth wide open, as if he was trying to scream before he died. I didn't want to look anymore. Whatever the case, it was best to quickly leave this haunted gorge. The explosives might still be useful, so I picked up the backpack containing them, preparing to tell everyone to move. At that moment, Hao Eguo stepped out from the group. It doesn't matter if these people are tomb raiders or not. We can't leave their bodies exposed here. Let's take them out of the gorge and bury them. When I see people's bodies exposed like this, I immediately think of those who were sent to labor in earthen kilns. Those comrades died so tragically, without even a straw mat to wrap them in. Oh, I can't bear to see these people. He mumbled on as he walked over, intending to move the sitting corpse. I was completely frantic now. I cursed loudly and rushed forward to stop him. Damn it, you bookworm, I told you not to touch those corpses. But it was too late. From the corpse's mouth, a bizarre snake suddenly shot out. Its scales glittered, and it had a black hump on its head. It was about 30 centimeters long. With a flick of its body, the snake lunged straight at Hao Eguo's face. Hao Eguo's eyesight wasn't good, but even if it were, his reactions wouldn't have been quick enough to dodge. In that brief moment, I only wanted to save him. Without thinking much, I quickly swung my sapper shovel down, cutting the snake in half. Hao Eguo, terrified, fell back onto the ground. His entire body trembled as he forced a smile at me. So dangerous, luckily. Before he could finish speaking, the severed upper half of the snake suddenly shot forward with the speed of an arrow, leaving a bow, its mouth snapping shut tightly around Hao Eguo's neck. Seeing the snake cut in half, I had relaxed, completely unprepared for this sudden turn of events, and was too late to save Hao. Hao Eguo's face froze. His throat made a few gurgling sounds. He wanted to speak, but couldn't. His skin instantly turned pale green. He sat motionless and then just died. At this point, the entire team was stunned with terror. Professor Chen saw his vision darken and fainted. I hadn't even had time to grieve for Hao Eguo when I suddenly felt a cold shiver down the back of my neck. I tilted my head to look, and there an identical monstrous snake had crawled onto my shoulder at some unknown moment, its tongue flicking out with a hiss. Its entire body's muscles were slightly contracted backward, its mouth wide open, its front body arched up preparing to bite me. The snake's movements were very fast, and at such close range there was no time to dodge. In the group, only Fatty Wang knew how to shoot, but he was carrying Yi Yixin and wasn't holding a gun. This incident was truly too sudden. The others were also unprepared. I felt as if a bucket of cold water had been thrown on me. Damn it, I never expected Hu Bayi to die here now, never to see the morning sun again. I knew the attacking posture of venomous snakes. The front part of the body arches up, then the snake's head darts forward, using its venomous fangs to bite its prey. Both my neck and face were within its attack range. I couldn't dodge, and there was no time to block. As I was preparing to close my eyes and wait for death, suddenly there was a flash of white light. The pitch black gorge was illuminated. The monstrous snake, which was about to strike my neck, was halfway through its attack when it was dazzled by the sudden flash of light, startled, and quickly slithered off my shoulder. All of this happened within a second. Without waiting for the snake to fall to the ground, I swung my sapper shovel down, smashing its head to pieces. The mangled snake head oozed quite a bit of black fluid. I quickly retreated a few steps, secretly thinking how lucky I was. This snake's venom was terrifying. If I had been bitten, the venom would have rapidly spread through my bloodstream, surely leading to death. Looking up, I saw that the life-saving white flash had come from Shirley Yang's camera flash. She had always been inseparable from her camera, taking pictures wherever she went. I never expected my life to be saved by her camera's flash. It was fortunate that she reacted quickly. Otherwise, Hu Bayi would have already met Hu Tai. But this was no time for thanks. Who knew if there were more of those bizarre snakes' kin in this gorge? Whatever needed to be discussed could wait until we were out. With that, I waved my hand, calling for everyone to quickly move out. At this point, perhaps the camels sensed there were no more venomous snakes ahead, and they had calmed down after their panic. Chu Jian and Sa Dipeng then helped the unconscious Yi Yixun, Professor Chen, and Hao Eguo's body onto the camels' backs. Old Anlaman whistled, ordering the camels to advance. The entire team, using the light from flashlights and flares, hastily exited the dark Zaklama gorge. The group ran straight to the open space outside the gorge before stopping, placing Hao Eguo's body on the ground. It wasn't yet dawn, the moon and stars were faint. The moment before sunrise was always this dark. Hao Eguo still bore the terrified expression of his death, his lifeless eyes behind his glasses still open, his entire body pale green. Under the flashlight, he looked even more tragic and bizarre. Professor Chen was roused by the cold wind blowing out of the gorge. He struggled and rushed to Hao Eguo's body, crying silently. I helped the professor up. The dead cannot return to life. I wanted to advise him to temper his sorrow, but the words caught in my throat. Hao Eguo and I had been together for almost a month. On regular days, I used to jokingly call him an old fossil, but I liked his quick wit and straightforward nature. But today, thinking of that, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Who could I console then? The remaining 8 people all silently shed tears. At this moment, a faint pink crack of light appeared on the distant horizon. The sun was finally about to emerge. We all involuntarily looked towards the east. The light gradually turned rose-colored, then crimson, and finally transformed into countless dazzling golden rays of sunshine. The sun had risen. In this moment, the boundless sea of sand seemed to turn into a stretch of golden powder in God's furnace. Amidst this stretch of sand like molten gold, a city appeared right before the group's eyes. Countless walls were tilted and collapsed, and various structures of brick, wood, and stone, along with innumerable towers within the city, were evident. Most prominent was a black stone tower, now somewhat tilted, yet still silently standing tall within the city. Compared to the black and white photograph in Shirley Yang's hand, the scene was identical. After 2,000 years, the ruins of the ancient city of Jingju indeed still existed in the depths of this desert. The scale of Jingju city was large enough to accommodate 50 or 60,000 people. In ancient times, famous ancient cities like Lulin, even at their peak, only had 10 or 20,000 residents and an army of over 3,000. This city was generally almost completely ruined, buried in sand for no less than 1,000 years. In some places, it was difficult to distinguish whether it was a sand dune or a rampart. Most of the towers had weathered and collapsed, but even so, it was enough to imagine its former grandeur and magnificence. This place had a very strong magnetic field, making it difficult for planes to fly low. Moreover, being deep in the desert, very few people could likely reach it. We didn't know how many explorers and lost travelers before us had reached this legendary ancient city. Only one thing could be confirmed: 99% of those among us would never be able to return to their hometowns. Professor Chen helped Hao Eguo's body up from the ground, his hand trembling as he pointed to the ancient city of Jingju, then said in a weak voice, "Look here. Haven't you always wished to see this mysterious city with your own eyes? Quickly open your eyes and see, we've finally found it." I silently thought, this is bad. Seeing the old man in such extreme grief, or perhaps his mind wasn't clear, I quickly pulled Professor Chen away from Hao Eguo's body. "Professor, Teacher Hao is gone. Please let him rest in peace. It's only regrettable that at the last moment, he couldn't see this ancient city, preserved like a miracle. Teacher Hao's dying wish depends on us to fulfill. Please calm down and be strong, Professor." Shirley Yang and several students also turned to console him. I handed the professor over to them, my heart troubled by Hao Eguo's death and grateful for Shirley Yang's life-saving act. I then said to her, "For saving my life just now, I won't say thank you again. Consider it that I owe you one life. But business is business. We've reached Jingju, so according to the terms of our previous contract, $20,000. As soon as Fatty Wang heard money mentioned, he quickly ran over to add, $20,000 each, a total of $40,000, cash please. Shirley Yang glared at us two, pressing her lips together, and said, "Don't worry, you two. Not a single cent will be missing. I will pay you immediately after we return." I thought to myself that bringing up money at this moment was truly inappropriate. Earlier, my mind was in a whirl, and I had spoken carelessly without choosing my words. Now, it was better to quickly change the subject, but I didn't know what to say. I stammered and changed topics repeatedly. "This city, its scale is not small." Shirley Yang looked intently at us and said, "Through our interactions so far, I've found you two to be extraordinary individuals, and your experiences are equally extraordinary. But I never expected you two to care only about money. It seems my first impression of you two wasn't wrong. I'll give you two a piece of advice. In life, besides money, there are many other valuable things." I had nothing more to say. Fatty Wang continued, "My dear Miss Yang, you live under the stars and stripes of the United States of America. Your father is a billionaire on Wall Street. I'm sure you've never had to use food stamps to eat, and since childhood, you've never had to save food in case of famine. Therefore, you don't understand our living conditions, nor do you have the right to judge our values. Furthermore, don't use that tone of how one should live life to lecture us. The poor don't have a life, the poor live merely to survive. Anyway, these principles, if told to wealthy people like you wouldn't understand. Today, I really can't hold back anymore. If you don't want to listen, then just pretend I haven't said anything. Now that we've found the city of Jingju, what should we do next? Please give your orders." At first, Fatty Wang spoke with great fervor and reason, but then he remembered that Shirley Yang was the boss, and worried she might get angry and not pay them. So he changed the subject, talking about arduous manual labor. I said to her, "About teacher How. I tried my best." "I'm sorry." Shirley Yang nodded to me, not bothering to pay attention to Fatty Wang. Then she took water and helped Professor Chen and Yi Yixin drink. Hao Eguo's death had shocked Professor Chen severely, making his head spin. After drinking some water, he gradually recovered. Everyone discussed for a few moments, and then decided to bury Hao Eguo in the gorge. He had pursued the study of Western regions culture his entire life. Burying him here, to eternally accompany this mysterious ancient city, he would surely have hoped for them to do so. We dug a deep hole in the sand, wrapped Hao Eguo's body in a mat, and buried him on the spot. Finally, I inverted my sapper shovel and stuck it into the grave, as if leaving a tombstone. The remaining 8 people stood solemnly before Hao Eguo's grave, observed a long moment of silence, and then departed. The dead were dead. We still needed to save the living. We had to immediately enter the city to find fresh water. Otherwise, the second person to be buried in this desert would be Yi Yixin, who was severely dehydrated. After that, everyone gathered their equipment, preparing to set off for the city. They had finally reached their destination. They hoped nothing else would happen. If something else did happen to someone, even if this money was in hand, they didn't know if they would be able to spend it. Seeing that everyone was more or less ready, I asked Shirley Yang if we could depart. Before departing, Shirley Yang was slightly agitated, her body trembling slightly. It was unclear if it was fear, anxiety, or excitement. I only saw her take out a cross and whisper a prayer for a while, then immediately said calmly, "Let's go." Who knew that at this moment, old Anlaman suddenly acted up, shaking his head repeatedly. No matter what was said, he refused to enter the ruins of the ancient city of Jing. He said that a companion dying in the desert was an ominous sign, let alone Hao Eguo being bitten to death by a venomous snake, a messenger of demons. We were at a loss. We had to rearrange, assigning him to set up camp at the mouth of the gorge to look after the camels and supplies. I had originally intended to have Fatty Wang stay behind to watch him too. What if this old man saw danger and fled, abandoning us here? Him fleeing alone wouldn't be an issue, but without the camels, we would have to travel on foot to return. And how far could one travel on foot in the desert? It was truly hard to say. But then I thought again, old Anlaman probably wouldn't run away alone. After all, they had come this far, and his guide's fee was not yet in hand. That amount was not small, enough for the rest of his life to live in comfort. But because I had been careless too many times, I had suffered quite a few disadvantages. At this point, it was better to be cautious. I pulled old Anlaman's hand and asked, "Old man, how will Hutai punish those who lie and betray?" Old Anlaman said, "As for that, his money will turn into sand, even his salt will turn into sand, and eventually he will starve to death, just like dying in the Black Desert. After death he will be banished to the hot sand hell, to suffer 100,000 torments." I saw that he spoke very solemnly, so I felt relieved. His belief made me conclude that he would not dare to do things against his conscience and divine will. So, only 7 people remained to enter the ancient city. Among them, Yi Yixin was still unconscious, carried on Chu Jian's back. Only 5 people were left to carry equipment and weapons, plus food and water bottles, each bearing a considerable load. There's a famous saying in the army, if not a soldier, carry 20 jin on your back. This means that when marching, officers and soldiers in the army must carry at least 20 jin of equipment on their person. Some people carrying machine guns, flamethrowers, or heavy infantry weapons like anti-tank rifles would carry much more. I had spent 10 years in field military, so carrying all this gear felt like nothing. But Professor Chen and his students couldn't handle it, and eventually had to leave everything behind. The mouth of the gorge was very close to the ancient city. Walking for about the time it takes to eat a meal, they reached the city gate. The gate had collapsed long ago, and the moat in front of it was also filled with sand. We proceeded through the dilapidated walls, where an eerie, deathly silence enveloped the surrounding ruins. This place was vastly different from what I had imagined. It was impossible to avoid deep disappointment. The roads and houses in the city were either collapsed or shattered. From a distance, it was still somewhat impressive, retaining a sense of scale, but once inside, there was absolutely nothing, just sand, dust, rotten wood, and rubble. No gold, silver, or treasures whatsoever. Only a few massive but severely damaged wooden pillars and beams, their vermilion paint and gold leaf long peeled away, still hinted at some of its former splendor and luxury. We intended to check several ruined houses near the city gate, but found that although more than half of these dilapidated houses were exposed in the desert, they were still filled with sand up to their roofs inside. Legend had it that this city was once destroyed by war. When Allied forces attacked the Imperial Palace, at the moment the battle was nearing its end, a black sandstorm buried the entire kingdom of Jing, along with its residents and army, deep within the sand. It wasn't until the 19th century that shifting sands revealed it to daylight once again. Upon examination at the scene, it largely matched the legend, except no mummies were seen, perhaps all buried deep in the sand. I found it all interesting, but Professor Chen and his students seemed very interested in everything in the city. Even a collapsed wall could hold their gaze for a long time. I had to remind them, Yi Yixun is still ill. Saving lives is the most important thing. It seems the residential areas in the city have all been filled with sand and dust. Not even a well can be found. Perhaps we should go to the Imperial Palace and see. There might be a water source there. The Imperial Palace is usually in the center of the city. Professor Chen tapped his head. Oh, I'm getting old and muddle-headed. Saving Yi Yixun is urgent. Let's hurry to the Imperial Palace. Kingdoms in the desert were all built where underground rivers were close to the surface. In some places, rivers even flowed beneath underground palaces. The Imperial Palace is usually in the center of the city. Everyone searched for directions amidst the ruins, then proceeded to the center of the city. Fatty Wang said to me, Hey Yi, do you know what I want to eat most right now? I'd love to eat cantaloupes and horse udder grapes. Even a watermelon would be good. I won't talk about it anymore. The more I talk, the thirstier I get. My throat is practically smoking here. If I find an underground river, I'll jump in and take a bath first. I replied, this queen of Jingju lived very luxuriously in her lifetime. She must have frequently eaten watermelons soaked in cool underground river water. However, even if those watermelons were preserved until today, more than half would have turned into stone melons by now, and the grapes would probably have become raisins. Fatty Wang complained, damn this godforsaken place. It's truly unimaginable that people once lived here. Next time, even if you offer $20,000 or piles of gold and silver mountains right in front of me, I wouldn't come to the desert. The most uncomfortable way to die in this world is definitely dying of thirst. As soon as death was mentioned, I immediately thought of Hao Aguo, bitten to death by that bizarre snake. Although he died very quickly, I didn't know how much pain he suffered in the moments before his death. The snake's form was also extremely strange. It had a black fleshy hump on its head, filled with black fluid inside. Even when cut in half, it could still lunge and kill. Even Shirley Yang had never seen such a snake. I wonder if this kind of snake exists in the city.